27 teams will narrow down to 8 after this final week of regular season games.
And they got Mohan stumped by...
Some teams control their own playoff fate. And some teams will need help from others. Count on us to bring you up to speed on emerging cricket's minor league cricket show.
Lofty record, bring back the love. LPR, warm to the love.
Lofty Records.
Hey, from the minute when me step out of your sabe, you know man I yard it. Heart beat a touch, Bob Marley. You know man I yard it. If you're not that positive, no say fat. You know man I yard it. One love.
Week 7 of Toyota's Minor League Cricket Championship saw many great finishes and the formal elimination of Orlando Galaxy, DC Hawks, and the New Jersey Somerset Cavaliers. Here to join me again to discuss the current status of the league is Joel Madden. Joel, thanks for joining once again and bringing your voice to the discussion. Everything is really on the line next weekend, isn't it?
Certainly, indeed. We are now at the official crunch time of the league. There's no more time for mistakes. There's no more time for giving up chances. Like, this is it, or go home.
And there's plenty of teams still in the race, mathematically speaking, more so than actually legitimately in the race. For example, you have the Manhattan Yorkers mathematically still in the race. However, Tom Nielsen ran 10,000 simulations, and in none of them did Manhattan make the playoffs.
I mean, when we really look at it, like, for sure, we were talking about the Empire State Titans. They've done the job. They've jumped to the top of the table. And for me, I think that with the matches they have left, they should be safe. Now, in that zone for me, the only question is what comes down between New Jersey Stallions and the Philadelphians. And funny enough, they play each other in this weekend coming. So that is a playoff match in itself right there to decide who is going to be that second place to go through in that Eastern Division for me.
Yeah, that's a can't miss game. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Empire State, Christopher Barnwell, Nathan Stewart, the rest of that team really kept their form alive last weekend. They played 3 games. They won all of them. There might mathematically be 4 teams alive in the East, but like you said, Empire State sure seems like a lock. In fact, the simulations I mentioned before that Tom Nielsen ran, 99% of the time, Empire State made the playoffs as well.
Yeah, based on form and everything, even like you said just last week, Trevor Griffith came to the fore again. So just going based on form, like, I cannot see them losing all of their games in the weekend coming. So they go through, and then it's just to see who will join the party with them.
I'm not sure where their batting even ends. Like, they bat so deep. You have to bowl them out. I mean, there's no relief. You get a wicket, you can celebrate for a second or so, and then it's right back to business. They're just too strong. So moving on to the South, Atlanta Fire, they clinched first place. Orlando is out. The Parmavers basically need 2 wins next week against the Fire to make it in. Otherwise, the path is clear for the Morrisville Cardinals.
Yeah, for Morrisville, I mean, Morrisville have gotten fortunate given that they accumulated all their points at the beginning, because the form has significantly dropped. Not that they lost a couple of players, but they're narrowly making it into that playoff spot. And as you said, Parmavers have Atlanta Fire this weekend. They have to win both. If we go on numbers, stats, and predictions, you might not tell yourself that they will win both. There's a chance, obviously, that you can win both. Obviously, that is cricket,
Right.
But when we run the numbers, you have to tell yourself that the form that Atlanta Fire has been in, they will at least win one. So that tells me that, hard luck there for Parmavers, and Morrisville will just edge their way into the playoff.
Yeah, they've lost 4 in a row without their captain, Jaskaran Malhotra, who's in Oman right now with Team USA, actually. Oh, I want to give him a little bit of a shout out. I got a Jaskaran jersey right here for a USA jersey, which I would be wearing right now if it wasn't 2 sizes too small for me.
I I think that might be able to fit me. Thanks in advance.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. I'll give you my Venmo. How's that?
Fair enough.
But yeah. So speaking of USA, lost a close one today against Nepal, who had blown the doors off them last year or last 18 months ago. The last time they played, which wait for nearly 600 days for cricket, and then you end up having to play Nepal again. That's cruel. But they they narrowly lost today. Nepal chased it down with 1 over to spare. They look like they're playing much better, obviously than the last time they played them. So let's hope that they can put it all together and get some wins in this series. They're playing two very, very good teams in Oman and Nepal. And when are we going to host them here? I mean, we gotta host them at Church Street Park, I think, and let Jaskaran hit the ball, into the side screen a few times.
Certainly, honestly, and to play there will be an amazing experience, anyways. So definitely.
So we've covered the South and the East. Moving on to the Central, Michigan still has a chance. They play against the Chicago Blasters this weekend. And
they beat them twice. Yeah.
Right, and the Blasters are no slouch, but you have to favor Michigan's roster against them. But they have to play them 2 times, so anything can happen there, and they're going to need some help from Houston as well.
Certainly. So for me in that zone, Austin, they're at top. They go through, and really and truly, the only game that my eyes will be focused on, because I'm going to tell myself Michigan, they're going to go out there hard. They're going to do their job. And they're going to pull 2 performances together. All right. What happens now with Houston Hurricanes versus Irving Mustangs? That is going to be the game, because if Houston wins, it is all over. Goodbye, Michigan. Thanks for coming. You played well this season. Unfortunate. But if they lose, that is going to make things very, very, very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. It's like I said, they're going to need help from the Hurricanes, and they're going to need the Hurricanes to fail. That's the kind of help they're going to need.
It's
Michigan
true.
right now has a net run rate advantage, and obviously that advantage will only build if they win both of their games and Houston loses theirs. So if it ends up a draw on points, Michigan will go through. Irving is no slouch either.
Definitely not. That is why. Yep, that is why.
Yeah, and the teams know each other, so you can bet it'll be a good game. It's going to be a hard fought game. Irving's not going to want to give in. So that's a can't miss.
And definitely, and funny enough, off of the form that they had coming out of last week, having to win that in the last over, Sackling Hater, like for me, that was the performance of the week for me.
Oh,
the first sweep for 6, penultimate ball of the innings, like that takes guts to tell yourself, all right, this is my premeditated shot I'm going to play. That took the cake for me. So they're riding on that form. So we'll see.
Yeah, that was amazing. There were some incredible finishes this last weekend. Jonathan Fu also, went off once again, as he tends to do, and then put on a show and won the game and put on a great little celebration, as he also tends to do.
Yeah.
So there's scenes everywhere. There's a lot to see. Philadelphia is currently in 3rd place, and they have a chance to make it in the East, as we discussed. And now let's talk about the West. Nothing but exciting games this weekend.
Oh, certainly. Honestly, it is going to be an action-packed dynamite week in the West, because the top 3 teams play the top 3 teams, and the only person that can afford to lose is Golden State Grizzlies. Like, mathematically, they can lose both and they can still go through. So the question now becomes, who is going to bring the performances this weekend between East Bay Blazers and Silicon Valley Strikers? Because they play each other on the Saturday, and that is the must-win game. Because when you think back to last week, Silicon Valley had a chance to edge ahead, but then Seattle got the better of them, and it was a brilliant innings there as well from Shadley. That was a phenomenal batting innings to take the game away from Silicon Valley Strikers. I mean, their fielding wasn't the best last week, so they're going to hope to improve on that. But it is all going to come down between who is going to play the best cricket between Silicon Valley Strikers and East Bay Blazers this weekend.
And you had to think Seattle was going to play spoiler on somebody last week.
Yeah, I had to think would have done it before too.
Yeah. They played all three teams last weekend, and so you have to think they're a good enough team. They've played enough at that ground at Morgan Hill now. By now, you have to think that they would have messed things up a little bit, and they certainly did. They came in and stirred things up. But yeah, it all comes down to those three teams at the top of the table in the West are finally playing against each other. We've seen them beat up everybody else in the division all season long. Golden State's the only team in the league with one loss, and they look fantastic. They've ridden the arm of Václav Vejhela, the youngster, and they rode it again last weekend. We're in for a great, exciting weekend to set up the playoffs.
Definitely, indeed. So pick your winner now. East Bay or Silicon to go through?
Well, you're doing this to me again.
Yes, I am. I like it.
Last week, I said Silicon Valley missing their two top bowlers with USA is a big problem, and I still believe that's a huge hamstring that they have to deal with, that they have to overcome. So I'm gonna say that it's gonna be East Bay.
No worry.
How about you?
I was actually waiting to hear what you said, but I think I'm gonna give the edge to East Bay as well, merely on how they performed over the weekend, how they performed over the tournament. I think that collectively they have what it takes to beat Silicon Valley Strikers this weekend.
They have a massive net run rate advantage as well.
Definitely, yep.
Which it could potentially come into play. But let's hope it just comes down to head-to-head action. That's what everyone wants to see.
Certainly.
All right, Joel. Well, thanks for wrapping it up this week. Really looking forward to the weekend. I think we've set it up pretty well that so that everybody can see what's going on.
No problem at all, Nate.
Every week on the show, we take a closer look at young players throughout the league and name an emerging player of the week. Here to join me this week, as always, is Aaman Patel. Aaman, it was another wild week of cricket in the minor league. I'm sure there were plenty of emerging players popping up. What do you think this week?
Yeah, this week somehow it just keeps getting tougher and tougher. And I just look at the names that I have listed down, and it's just a longer list every single week. I look at Václav Vejhela, Bhaskar Yadram once again, Laksh Parekh, who's always consistently been in the mix, Aditya Gupta, Rahul Jariwala, Ali Sheikh. All of these guys has had tremendous performances with both the bat and the ball. Right,
and this is when it's crunch time too. A lot of the guys that you mentioned are in the middle of a playoff race. One fella who showed up this week, Aryan Joshi from the New England Eagles, his team's eliminated, but they're trying to play spoiler. They're trying to win, of course. He bowled 5 overs for 25 runs and took 4 wickets. So he's worth mentioning for sure. So let's narrow it down a little bit. Who had the biggest games?
Yeah, I think it gets a little bit tougher. I feel a little, Bhaskar Yadram 60 off 29 was great, but I think for the Empire State Titans, it was a dominating win, no matter if he scored that or not. So you got to look at who really performed in the crunch moments. And I look at Aditya Gupta, who had 7 overs and 6 wickets, with his team needing a win to go and secure a playoff spot. And I look at Rahul Jariwala, 81 off 55, to try to secure his side of playoff spot as well. Neither of them were able to get wins in those games, but I thought those two performances when the team needed it the most really stood out to me.
Oh, absolutely. And also Ali Sheikh, who batted lights out for the Mustangs. They've been eliminated from the playoffs, but they're also, one of those spoiler situations where they're trying to beat Houston. He batted great. He bowled pretty well until the final over where he gave up 16. But just being able to turn to him with confidence in the final over says a lot about what the team thinks of him. I mean, of course, he's well thought of all around the country. He would get his chances anywhere. As far as those two, the two that you mentioned, I think those are great choices. Who are you going to pick? Which one are you going with this week?
Well, I think it's a tough choice. Nothing can go wrong in either way, both with Adi and Rahul. And I think this week we're going to go with Rahul Jariwala. I think with the bat and the pressure at the opening, Rahul hasn't had the greatest of minor leagues. He's scored in moments, but you haven't really seen it consistently, seen flashes. And I think for him to really step up in this game at this moment in time really just stood out. So I think the emerging player of the week would have to be Rahul Jariwala.
Well, we knew he would show up at some point and have a big game. And just like in the exhibition season, he did it when his team needed it the most. They're missing players with Team USA. They're in an incredibly tight race. They're about to play against the 2 other top teams in their division. This coming weekend will absolutely decide who makes the playoffs in the West. And so he'll have 2 games against 2 incredibly difficult teams out there. Hopefully this is just the start for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all expecting that innings to come sooner or later. We know how talented this kid is, and there's a reason he's been on the USA's radar for a very long time. And I was just waiting to see this innings come through. Unfortunately, they weren't able to go ahead and win this match, but I think to have this innings for him has got to boost his confidence. And I think it shows a big reason as why his team continues to give him these opportunities.
Sure. And I watched Adi Gupta's. I watched every ball Adi Gupta bowled. He was fantastic. He was stellar. There were appeals when there weren't wickets, and so it's a shame he doesn't have any games this coming weekend. He's got to wait and see what happens with the Atlanta Parhamveers. Every week we decide, we predict who's going to be the emerging player next week. We probably have a terrible record, but but let's go ahead and do that again. Who are you picking for next week?
I'm going to go with a couple the team that has something to really gain out of this week. I have the Atlanta Parhamveers. I'm going to go Atindra Subramaniam. I know he's been one of your picks all year long. I think, with the Parhamveers having to get something to happen, I think that it could be a big thing for Atindra, just to be able to consistently put pressure on the Parhamveers.
Absolutely. This week I'm going with Rohan Pasanapalli from East Bay Blazers. I think we haven't, talked a ton about him yet, but he brings some fire, and I'd love to see him step up when his team needs it the most. And so I'm just hoping for a whole bunch of chaos over there and hoping he's right in the middle of it. And one guy we haven't talked about yet, Sanjay Krishnamurthy, and there's a reason we haven't brought up his name.
Yeah, there is a reason. It seems like he's always been a fixture in here, and to not have to bring him up this week was kind of weird. But it's for a good cause. National duty. He was caught up for the USA selectors, said, you know what, let's go bring this kid up. Couple injuries in the USA camp. So they said, all right, Sanjay, you've performed well at the under 19s in the minor league. You've consistently been the emerging player. So we're going to go ahead and give you the opportunity at the national level. Yeah.
And you know what? There's no rules that say we can't pick him next week if he goes off and scores a century against Oman or something.
No rules. We make the rules here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've already picked them twice. This would be an extra special one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks again for joining, Aaman. It's always fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you.
I am Spooky, and you're watching Emerging Cricket.
Time now for things I really liked about Week 7. And of course, we had several big finishes and exciting moments. But I'm going to use this spot to talk about some great things in Oman. Mononk century against Nepal.
Just 3. Not possible as Patel is going to move to the brink of 100. Is he going to come back? He's going to get there. The second man to do it. In the blue and red of America, he points to the sky. Clearly signals up to someone in the heavens. He kisses his bat. He says, that's for you. That's a beautiful moment. It's the second ever ODI century made by an American.
And 2-time Emerging Player of the Week, Sanjay Krishnamurthy's debut for Red, White, and Blue.
What does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's a dream come true. I got a WhatsApp message, and then 8 hours later I was on a plane traveling to Oman for my first international tour. So it's super exciting, and I'm really excited. This is my first training session too, so I'm really excited to be out here and training with the boys and hopefully contribute to the team in any way that I can.
Before we let you go, what about minor league cricket? You've been in really good form for the East Bay Blazers.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the East Bay Blazers can pull it through this weekend, and it's a really great bunch of guys, so it's been fun.
Sanjay, the very best of luck this week.